Listen now, we the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard. We have big news to cover today. We had a segment planned and we're going to get into it. It's called Breakout Quarterback Predictions for the 2020 season. But of course, big news headline of the week. Cam Newton has found a home. And it's been rumored for months because he was the one remaining big name free agent. Been sitting out there so long at quarterback, and he's going to none other but the New England Patriots to replace Tom Brady. And Jarrett Stidham must be kicking himself. He thought he was going to be the next Jimmy G. Seems like Bill Belichick decided to go with the veteran. What do we think about this move, Smokey?
Oh man, there's a lot I think about this move. For one, I don't know. I mean, I've been seeing people respond that, oh, this automatically puts the New England Patriots back at number one in the division, back at number one in the league, pretty much. And they're automatically going to the Super Bowl. I don't really believe that. I really, if anything, if Cam Newton is the starter, which they do have the option to cut him at any point with this contract, I really think he's just coming in to try out, basically, for right now. And if Bill Belichick deems him worthy of still being a starter, then he's going to keep him. But I don't think that this really puts them at the top of the division anymore. I still think the Bills are winning that division. I think, if anything, maybe 1 to 2 wins more than they were going to have under Jarrett Stidham.
That's not a lot of wins, given that Stidham is a completely unknown factor.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, but it's also Bill Belichick's team, and I don't know. I think a game manager suits Bill Belichick more. But we have to ask that question: is Bill Belichick going to force Cam Newton to play the game that he wants, or is he going to force the team to play Cam Newton's game? That's also a factor that we really don't know at this time.
I feel like we can probably extrapolate the answer from over 20 years of experience. Cam Newton will have to fit himself into the system. Nothing will be built around him. Not there. That's been the philosophy, the Belichick philosophy at all times. I agree with the fact that he's bringing him in for testing because it's a big name, it's a superstar, but that's not something that the system has ever cared about or probably will ever care about. The team will always be above the player, and Cam Newton will have to get used to that because he used to be the superstar, the one guy. He run around dancing, wearing crazy costumes at press conferences, doing the Superman and everything. He'll have to cut back on all of those things a little bit, so that he's going to get humbled in New England because he can't do that type of thing. It's in the character sense, a bit of an atypical signing for New England, just like the Antonio Brown signing was last year. That was completely out of character for that team. It was a match that could never happen, and apparently it happened more or less just because Tom Brady really was demanding a receiver. Didn't turn out so well. Character-wise, it's not the most intuitive fit, but I believe if Cam Newton, after pretty bad injury, a season being basically backing up, sitting out, finding himself in free agency, and he's having to claw back into a starter role. I feel like he's the kind of player who will definitely humble himself and he'll compete for a starting role. He's not going to expect to walk into New England and it's going to be his team because that's just not how it happens. And if he fills those spots and he ticks those boxes, I think he can contribute in a big way. And I think the ceiling for the Patriots right now is definitely gone through the roof. We said that everything depends in the AFC East on how Jarrett Stidham plays. And is he going to come in? Is he going to be an average to above average game managing starting quarterback? If so, the Patriots will compete. Now, Cam Newton, we know at his best can be the best player in the league. He's been that before. Mm-hmm. He's had 15 wins in his MVP season with the Panthers. He's gone to the Super Bowl. He's set offensive records. He's been unstoppable. I believe he's not at that spot physically. It's just too beat up, and that's predictable given his style of play. But let's not forget that he's still a versatile dual threat quarterback, and he can throw the football. That's an important distinction that I make every time. He's not a running quarterback. He's a quarterback that can run, which makes people like Russell Wilson or Carson Wentz successful long term, as opposed to people like presumably Kyler Murray and many that have preceded him. So I think this is a good pickup for New England. I think this helps their chances massively. I will definitely check the betting odds, and I'm assuming they're way in the double digits for New England at this point. I feel like they have to be listed higher. This team should be better than last year if Cam Newton comes back playing the way that he played before he got hurt. Because let's remember that Tom Brady didn't exactly have the best couple of years of his career. And he's going to be trying to prove that that's not true in Tampa in Cam Newton's former division. I like this pickup a lot. I think the Patriots can rival, and I tweeted this out, they can rival Kansas City and Baltimore just with that one pickup.
Wow, really?
Yes, filling their biggest. Remember, they still have the best.
I do not.
They still have the best
that.
defense in the AFC, and that's an AFC with Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I believe they have the best defense. They have the best head coach, specifically defensive-minded head coach in the NFL. Now, there's still a distinct lack of offensive weapons, but the beauty of a Cam Newton as opposed to a Tom Brady is that he can be his own weapon at times. And people need to pay attention to Cam Newton, the player, Cam Newton, the runner, the playmaker, which is, of course, not the case with a pocket quarterback like Tom Brady. So he will actually add an extra wrinkle to that offense. That could help him out quite a lot. Like we've seen Carson Wentz do last year whenever the Eagles were throwing, he was throwing to the sausage runners, right? They were getting the hot dog guy to line up at wide receiver. And because he's that kind of a player, he can still carry that team to a positive record, to a division title and a playoff run. And Cam Newton is very similar type of player. I believe he adds a wrinkle to that offense that is much needed with not a whole lot of playmaking talent around him. He can elevate that offense. I think they have a really good shot at a deep playoff run.
Man, that's hard though. That's hard. I don't see Cam Newton as that. I mean, of course you made the distinction. He's not the 2015 MVP caliber quarterback anymore. But I saw what he was in his last games, and I mean, I guess you could blame that all on the shoulder if you really want to, but I just don't see him as having the oomph, he's lost a lot to his game. And I don't know, I mean, is Belichick and Josh McDaniels going to allow the runs? Because you compared him to Carson Wentz, and yes, he's definitely much like Carson Wentz, and I would compare them even more, like in their first few seasons each. Stature-wise, running-wise, yes, these guys are very similar, although Carson Wentz is much, much more accurate than Cam Newton.
That is correct. To answer your question, or do you want to continue?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that, and he doesn't have the offensive weapons that he had in Carolina when he was not playing very well also. But, I mean, I guess that comes down to, do you want to chalk that all up to the shoulder injury or not?
I'd say some of it. To answer your question, first of all, schematically, will they allow the runs, his old play style? Partially, and it's probably for the best. You said he lost a bit of his game, but it's probably mostly a part that he lost, which he should lose anyway as he gets up there in age, because this can only go on for so long. There's not going to be crazy jumping over the pile, diving for the pylon with the ball outstretched. There's not going to be putting the crown of your head down into Clay Matthews' shoulder trying to run people over at the goal line. The Superman ball is not going to be played in New England, and Belichick doesn't stand for that. He's notorious for not allowing anyone to ever jump for the end zone, just because of the risk of a fumbling to touchback. Those sort of precautions will, of course, apply to Cam Newton. But that's, I believe, a good thing. If they can get him in a little bit more of a based quarterback role, pocket first, read first, make your plays. We have, of course, a very strongly scheme-dependent offense. If he can fit that role, he's willing to accept that role and understand that as a secondary sort of ability of himself, he'll be able to make runs, to make plays, to extend plays, which he's always been great at doing. he'll be instructed to avoid contact as much as possible, to slide and stop being the the Superman that he was at Carolina whenever the entire offense was constructed around him. You're not going to see 10 read options a game being called, I'm pretty sure. It's going to be a situational weapon.
Yeah.
They'll calm him down a little bit, if that's the correct way to say it, but I feel like that it fits really well. And he could really go off in this offense if he accepts it, if he decides to adapt to that system and accept this role that he is now in. I feel like it's a great opportunity for him because there's not a more stable environment to be in than New England. And we know that he's a great player, he's a great leader and a locker room personality. We know he has the accolades. He's a former first-round pick, standout in college. He's an NFC champion and with a near-perfect season and a former NFL MVP. We know as an individual he can do it, and he's been there. He has the experience that he brings in. To me, this seems like a good match, even though it seems counterintuitive character-wise. I think Cam Newton will be able to adapt.
Yeah, that's the question there, if he will or not. I'm under the impression that Ron Rivera tried to get him to adapt, to turn him into a pocket passer, and we see where that ended up. But Belichick and Josh McDaniels, maybe it's a different story. Maybe they will. But as of right now, I'm bumping the Patriots up from 8-8 to 9-7.
That's not a lot.
Maybe 10-6 if I think about it.
I was gonna propose this bet to you, right? Because I almost thought that you were gonna do this. Double-digit wins for the Patriots under the condition that Cam Newton stays healthy throughout the season and as a starter. I'll put 3 cans on double-digit wins.
Ooh, 3 cans to 3 cans?
Yeah, just 1-to-1 odds. You can think about it. Let me know at the end of the show if you've decided.
Yeah, at the end of the show, let me think about that.
Think about that. Maybe I can change your mind on that. Actually, now I should try to convince you that they will be bad, so you take the bet.
I just said that I
think
maybe 10 and 6.
Maybe, but you don't really believe it.
I don't know. I'm on the borderline.
Let me ask you a question. Who's the better quarterback? 2018 Cam Newton or 2018 Tom Brady?
Oh, jeez. 2018 Cam Newton was horrible. Well, the end of the season was horrible. The first of the season, he was actually on a really good pace for 2018. Yeah, that's a really good question there, now that I think about it. If we split it into 2 halves, I'll take Tom Brady over second half Cam Newton. But then again, you could blame that on the shoulder injury.
Right. And we've seen a similar decline. Actually, I think over more years than we've seen Cam Newton from Tom Brady. And for Newton, again, it was mostly injury related. He's not at the point in his career where he athletically can't do it anymore. He's not. There's still a difference of over 10 years between those 2 players, or about 10 years, which we need to understand. So, if Tom Brady were in New England right now instead of Cam Newton, would you give them a better chance or worse chance, or about the same?
I think about the same. I'll even Tom Brady, watching him play last year, I would have pegged the Patriots with Tom Brady to go 9-7 or so. 9-7, maybe 10-6, maybe. I think it'd be about the same for me. I mean, and I do agree. At this point in time, Cam Newton is probably the better quarterback. Although, all we have to judge off right now is the last games we saw him play. But if he is healthy, yes, I will take Cam Newton over Tom Brady. And I guess, Belichick's probably going to take that all into consideration. I mean, he's not going to throw the guy out there if he's not healthy. So, yeah, I will take Cam Newton over that. And if Tom Brady were still there, I would give him 10-6.
Okay. That's about close. I'd say they're both in better situations, honestly. I've lined this out a little bit, given a little bit of a lack of talent that you have on that offense right now, I think a quarterback like Newton fits better because he's more of a playmaker when it breaks down by himself. Of course, if you have 3 prime receivers, you have Randy Moss and Gronk and Edelman and Wes Welker, who are all needing to be double covered and are all chomping at the bit for 15 catches. Yeah, you just want that quarterback who'll stand in the pocket, doesn't even think about using his feet for anything, and just throws the ball extremely solidly, extremely accurately a lot of times, which is Tom Brady. But in a offense where he's not surrounded with a lot of talent, and where he doesn't have those playmakers that just go and catch his passes in most of the time, I actually like a quarterback like this. Russell Wilson has been successful in Seattle for so many years without a number one receiver. When was the last time we had a notable Seattle receiver? Could say Doug Baldwin, maybe now DK Metcalf. But that entire Seattle dynasty, he never had a real number one receiver, right?
True.
You look at other teams like New Orleans or Atlanta. You have these elite receivers with those pocket quarterbacks, and that's actually a synergy, and that's why Tom Brady is probably in a better spot in Tampa Bay now than he was in New England, at least in that regard. Definitely not system-wise, but in that regard he is, because he can play the game that he wants to play, that he used to play 15 years ago whenever he had Moss and Welker and all those phenomenal players. So that's where he belongs.
I think he actually has 4 elite receivers at the time now.
He might.
You know, I would throw... I mean, if Gronk is still Gronk that we remember.
That's the
question.
question.
O.J. Howard is a phenomenal athlete, and he can be great. I know Bruce Arians doesn't love using the tight end, but we saw before Bruce Arians got there that O.J. Howard was on a trajectory to be phenomenal.
I'm assuming he's planning to use tight ends. If you pick up Gronk, you better be planning to use them.
I would hope so, but I can't remember the last season he actually used one as a receiving threat.
No, it might be because Jameis is physically incapable of throwing the ball less than 30 yards.
Well, even in Arizona, though.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm assuming that he's planning them into his game. Gronk is not the kind of player to sit down on the bench and not throw footballs to. That's not what you pay him that money for.
Exactly.
And I think Brady will have a thing or two to say about that too. I think he'll have a lot to do, a lot to say in that offense, and he's gonna be the one who ends up making a lot of the decisions. He's gonna get into that Peyton Manning role, like Peyton did in Denver, where he basically was the offensive coordinator on the field and determined everything.
Yeah, basically, because he was a zombie in those past few years and still won a Super Bowl.
It's true. I feel like it's the perfect situation for Brady to be in that sense, but it's tough to say that someone went to a better spot after leaving New England, because historically it just has not worked, and that Belichick magic is something we seemingly can't explain. And on the flip side, you look at that, could that be a system that potentially just revitalizes the career of a Cam Newton completely?
It's possible.
Could he come out? Could he be healthy? And could he be back to an MVP form? That'll be interesting to see.
I don't know. If he changes his style, I don't see him returning to MVP form as the running quarterback that he was in 2015.
That's not going to fly. That is absolutely true.
Yes.
The exactly. Superman antics aren't going to fly. He's going to have to adapt. He's going to have to change. But I feel like he has the possibility or the chance, the ability to change that Patriot system around him a little bit. It has to be a synergy. It has to work together. I'm optimistic with it. It's definitely taking a shot, but I like the move as a more direct, like, still win now, we are still in playoff contention sort of mode. And if it doesn't work out well, you still have another year of Jarrett Stidham. You can bring him in. You have them compete for the starting position in training camp. I don't think that Cam Newton got in and Bill Belichick opened him the door day one, be like, congrats, you're a starter. I don't think that's what happened. I think he's going to have to fight for that job, and that's the way to handle that room correctly, of course. I think he should have enough experience to be able to do that properly, and I'm definitely looking forward to watching it. It should be a very, very interesting story. So, how about we move on to the second topic here, about 20 minutes in. Speaking of quarterbacks, speaking of, not old, but actually younger quarterbacks, there's still quarterbacks in the league who are set to have potentially their breakout season, like we've seen from Cam Newton in 2015, or from Tom Brady in 1865, I don't know. So, we wanted to go over a couple of the guys that we think have a good shot or in a good position to put their name on the big scenes this year. And I feel like I kind of, I don't know, man, like telepathy or something. I feel like I know at least one of the names that you're going to give me here. We haven't talked about this before the show, but I can't shake the feeling that Josh Allen will be on your list.
Josh Allen is definitely on the list. I think you could probably guess all. I mean, I have a list of 5 right here.
Oh, 5?
I think you could probably, if you really thought about it, you could guess all of them.
Well, okay, let's go. So Josh Allen's on there for sure.
Yes.
I'll say Drew Lock because I've talked about it a lot, and I think you like him too. Let's go. You might give it to Sam Darnold also because the Jets seem like an interesting team.
He's on there.
Maybe Daniel Jones. Though I'm not sure what you think about the Giants.
Yeah, you got 4 of them.
That's 4. All right, so we need one more. I guess it's going to be Kyler, right? You're going to go with the flow here.
Yeah, okay. That's it.
Got him. Okay.
Now it just comes down to the order I have them in. Notice I did not put Baker Mayfield on here.
Yeah, it's a tough pick to make, given that situation can't get much better than last year, aside from of course coaching staff. And his best season so far was his rookie year.
Yes, exactly. But it came down to my number 5 spot is Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, and I went with Sam Darnold over Baker because even if the Browns do well this season, I don't see Baker just taking this humongous step and becoming like MVP caliber. Now, all of these guys on here, I think they have the chance to break out and take a huge step and become MVP caliber this season. But Sam Darnold, I think the ceiling for Sam Darnold is Matt Stafford, and the floor could possibly be Marcus Mariota. And there's one problem that is holding Sam Darnold back, and I think we all know that his name is Adam Gase. Yes.
There we go.
Now, they do have a much improved O-line. We got Mekhi Becton to add to George Fant and Van Rutten over there. They picked up Denzel Mims in the draft, and they signed Rashad Perryman for the season. Now, the weapons, just thinking about that list, the weapons, are not just stunningly awesome. It's not the guys you're picking if you were wanting to be the MVP for sure. But I think Sam Darnold has the talent if he can just polish himself up and become, a Matt Stafford-like quarterback rather than a Marcus Mariota quarterback. But yeah, that's why he's at number 5. I think the only thing holding him back is Adam Gase.
That's a fair point, I'd say. I think Darnold's the most talented quarterback potentially on that list and definitely coming out of his draft class. And you said it right. He's not in a favorable situation. And the Matthew Stafford comparison is not only stylistically valid, and I have another name for you in that sense, by the way, but unfortunately also the situation that he finds himself in, being the one who has to seemingly carry the offense with inconsistent coaching, inconsistent teams around him, and never really building that flow and being put or surrounded with an actually strong team. And I don't know if you've seen this, my pro comparison for Luck I gave it away. For Darnold when he came out was Andrew Luck, and a lot of people said Stafford equally appropriate, and Andrew Luck kind of with a similar career path. And I mentioned some of these guys. I mentioned Stafford, Luck, and also Aaron Rodgers, and I said those are the kinds of players that Sam Darnold can be. But those are the kinds of career paths that he's definitely going to want to dodge, because all of those guys have pretty much been sacrificed by their teams and basically doomed to never achieve the success that their potential would definitely dictate that they should. Andrew Luck and Matthew Stafford should have had more playoff appearances in their careers than they've had. And probably even Aaron Rodgers should. So Sam Darnold, that's the type of career path that he really wants to avoid, and it's so far it's not looking great with the Jets. Yes, they're gonna pay him. He's probably gonna stay there long term, but you have to build around him. I said last year I thought they were looking up with Le'Veon Bell, of course, being signed, and then Sam Darnold was sick, and they played 3 different quarterbacks and just never really clicked. And now this year they drafted well. I mean, they're one of the better teams in the draft, in my opinion. They did incredibly well. That offensive line is boosted. And now the Jamal Adams situation starts, and their best player on their team wants out or wants too much money, and they can't afford to pay him. It's not looking good. Somehow the Jets always find a way to stagnate, to just stay where they are. And it seems like Sam Darnold right now, I hate to say it, but he might be doomed to that sort of a career pathway. He's just stuck in an 8-8 scenario, like an 8-8 environment. And it's really tough to get out of that if you're not literally Aaron Rodgers. For him to be the MVP, he has to be the best player in the league, absolutely, because no one's going to get him the MVP for him. If you have, say just for argument's sake, Tom Brady got MVP this year. Don't think he will, but say if he did. You have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski. You have a strong running game, strong offensive line. You have a good defense, and you have O.J. Howard as well in that team. That goes a long way because all of those stats go back to the quarterback also. And Sam Darnold's not working with that. And that's why someone like Matthew Stafford, who as an individual player is certainly capable of winning an NFL MVP, has never really been in that conversation because the results aren't there and the team production isn't there. So that's kind of where I'm seeing Sam Darnold's ceiling there. Breakout candidate as an individual, yes, but all the way up on the MVP ladder, I'm not seeing him.
Yeah, I agree fully. You want to move on to number 4?
Let's go. Go to 4. What we got?
Kyler Murray. Now, this is a guy that, the trend has been over the past 2 seasons that second season, somewhat mobile quarterback ends up being the MVP. So I'm already seeing it around analysts everywhere, projecting Kyler Murray to have that breakout season and be the MVP this season. And if you look at it, I think a lot of people had his pro comp as Russell Wilson.
That's true.
They were really high on this guy. Rookie of the year last year. I think he probably has the second best weapons on this list, though, when you factor in DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and Larry Fitzgerald. And the O-line is also improved this season, much like the Jets there. So it's all going to come down to, can he be the next Russell Wilson or not? And this may be, I don't want to say the make or break year, but I think if he doesn't do it this year, then he's probably not capable of doing it.
Okay, I feel like he's in a better situation. He's definitely in a better situation than Darnold. No doubt, Arizona looking more up than the Jets to me, just a more consistent team. And DeAndre Hopkins, of course, major steal, massive addition. But then still look at the competition. They're still playing the strongest collection of defensive lines in the NFL within their division. And their schedule isn't exactly easy. Now, I think they've improved. I think they've gotten better, and a lot of teams have them making a playoff push this year if they were to beat out the LA Rams, who a lot of teams have trending downward. That is possible. And yes, Kyler will have to step it up a little bit at least. Team's gotten better around him. I think Cliff Kingsbury can call a good play. I'm worried about the consistency with him, and I've said this before. The types of players like him tend to get figured out in the long run. And there's only few examples of similar type-ish players or similar skill players that really lasted for a long time. And that's skill set, that's playing style, and that's also physical composure. So history would not speak for him being the long-term answer, the long-term solid starter, right? There's a Russell Wilson unicorn. Maybe you could say Drew Brees if you look at height, but again, Kyler is significantly shorter than both of those guys. And his height of release is even lower than the proportion to that. So I have my doubts about him. I've had it last year. He's played better than I thought last year. Arizona did better than I thought last year. And yes, they have definitely improved. I'm not so sure about this. I don't think he's a real MVP candidate. I get why people want him there, because of course he's second year. It's the perfect story. He did well last year. And they're thinking he's going to be the Lamar Jackson of last year. He's going to explode and blow up and win 12 games and make the playoffs. I pumped the brakes on that a little bit. But we will have to see. I think he's facing stiffer competition than Lamar did last year. I think his offense, specifically the running game around him, isn't as developed as it was in Baltimore. The offensive line isn't quite as good, and the defenses that they will be facing will be ferocious. I think we can all agree that Seattle, San Francisco, and the Rams all have strengths or big strengths of their team at the defensive front. So that's going to be something that Kyler Murray will have to deal with. And to me, he's really not a big candidate for MVP, though I get that people like him, and I believe a lot of betting money will be lost on him this year.
Very possible. Number 3 happens to be Drew Lock, the phenom from Mizzou. And now, out of all these guys, I think he has the best weapons. And when you look at Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Handler, Noah Fant, and not only that, in the draft this year, they picked up Albert O, which was his favorite target at Missouri, and possibly the fastest tight end in the draft this past. Now, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing if they maybe run some 12 and 22 personnel and put some 2 tight end sets out there, because I think that's going to be a dynamic offense if they start doing that. 7 wins last season for this team. And yeah, that's not great just looking at it from the outside, but you have to remember that he only I didn't even write it down. He only started the last half of the season, of course. Pat Shurmur takes over as the OC. I think they go over 10 wins this season, at least 10 wins this season. And I think Drew Lock has a really good chance at breaking out and becoming the MVP this season.
I'm honestly kind of surprised he's only your number 3. I get that Josh Allen is probably going to be one. To me, this is a question between him and Allen. If you want to look at it from that way, he should be at least number 2. Drew Lock could be my number 1 on this list, frankly. And if I had to put the list together, I'd probably say he will be my number 1, because Josh Allen's already been pretty good. So his breakout would need to be even more astronomical to be considered that big of a breakout. But yeah, Drew Lock is my number 1 candidate for sure. He's got everything falling into place. You said, like, a great offseason. And something you didn't even mention is arguably one of the best running back tandems in the league all of a sudden showing up behind him.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's gonna be a big deal. Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, that's gonna be a big deal. Jerry Jeudy is a perfect fit for the offense. The route running specialists, exactly what a quarterback like that needs, even more so than the tall, just chuck it up 50-50 ball kind of receiver, because that way he actually plays the offense correctly. It's exactly what you want. I think John Elway knocked the draft out of the park for the first time in a long time, and this team is coming together rapidly after the post-Manning slump, and then with the Brock Osweiler days, which we don't speak about. It didn't look good. And Joe Flacco got picked up, who was really also just Brock Osweiler. Didn't look good for a couple years. But they turned it around pretty quickly. The defense through all of that has remained strong. They've had Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, presumably will both be healthy. The defense and the pass rush can really go places and get after people. I think they have a good schedule to play. And I feel like the offense could even be the strongest of this team. Broncos are definitely one of my dark horse, no pun intended, picks to go pretty far and maybe even double their wins. People like this game so much. What's the most likely team to double their wins from last year? Maybe sometime in the future we should more in-depth talk about that. But don't call it completely outlandish to see the Broncos. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make a confession here, all right? And you're going to love to hear this. You're never going to let me hear the end of it. I have $5 on the Broncos winning the division. Already made it. Already locked it in, literally. Made the bet, put in the bank. 100% guaranteed. And you know what that means. That means I've bet against a certain other quarterback.
Our Lord and Savior.
The best there is. And the best there may ever have been.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes against some of your predictions, right?
Well, it does. But here's the thing. First of all, I change my mind sometimes, and especially if things are close. And the Broncos team is better than that Chiefs team outside of quarterback. I have no doubt at this point. If people stay healthy, the defense has always been better than the Chiefs defense. And I feel like that receiving core can do big work. You get an actual running game and not the kind of running game that Kansas City has, and all of a sudden you've become multi-dimensional, and all that it takes is for Patrick Mahomes to not have a career game or two against you, and you beat them in the regular season, and then you of course you smack the Raiders twice, smack the Chargers twice, and you got a manageable schedule outside of your division, given the talent that you have, and the fact that you get to play half your games in Denver. I like the Broncos a lot, and that's why I think that bet is justified. Still, I think the Chiefs should be favored to win the division, given they have the best football player that has walked the planet in the 21st century. But I feel like the Broncos are a good pick, and Drew Lock definitely the pick for MVP. You want to bet on an MVP? Drew Lock should be at the top of your sheet.
I like it. Although I do have a couple ahead of him. Let's go on to Daniel Jones. Now, this has got to be the worst. Man, I'm almost talking myself out of putting him second.
I'm noticing you doing kind of, yeah.
He does have the worst receiving core out of this entire list.
Maybe the worst defense, too.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I kind of think that Giants defense is going to be better than the Cowboys this season.
Well, Dak is not on this list, is it?
No, and I didn't want to put somebody like Dak or Carson Wentz on there because I feel like those guys have already kind of broken out.
Yeah, Carson definitely has, and Dak you could argue has during his rookie season.
Yes, exactly, and they were both considered for MVP at one point in time. So, but anyway, Daniel Jones put up 24 passing touchdowns to 12 interceptions with a horrible O-line, and they have improved it, adding one Andrew Thomas in the draft, which is a great pickup in my opinion. This is going to come down to the new coaching staff with Jason Garrett and Joe Judge, and how much do we believe in these guys? I know it seems like the entire world doesn't believe in Jason Garrett, but obviously somebody in New York believes in him enough to hire the guy. And I don't know, he's put together some decent offenses in the past, or at least there has been some decent offenses under Jason Garrett in the past. I mean, Dak Prescott's rookie season, 13 wins, it was a great season. So if Daniel Jones can be Danny Dimes and be Duke Daniel and, be as great as I think that he possibly could be, he has a real chance at turning this entire team around and putting the team on his back and taking them to the promised land and becoming MVP.
So what are your chances if you had to guess? Giants make the playoffs this season. What percentage did you put on that?
Where did I put? Hold on, let me go back to when I statted them out here. Well, I have them at 8-8, and all it would take is for them to best the Cowboys and sneak into the wild card, especially with the extra wild card position we're gonna have this season. I give them about a 60%.
That's probably higher than I'd be willing to go. I'll definitely say that for that team right now. Yeah, Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. I think he has the potential, but the thing is, I think that he's probably more like Eli than a lot of people recognize. He'll be good enough. And you put a really good team around him, give him a good defense, he can go to Super Bowls, he can make playoffs regularly. He'll be more like Eli than he'll be like Peyton. And that's fine. That's your starting quarterback. Most teams get along with that. MVP, I'm not so sure. And you've brought up the team that is currently around him. Probably not the kind of team that would support that kind of a quarterback to MVP levels. If we switch spots with him and Drew Lock, I still think Denver would do better with Daniel Jones than the Giants would do with Drew Lock. the difference between them as individual players isn't huge. I like Drew Lock a little better. I've liked him a little bit better ever since the draft. I had him at 1, I had Daniel Jones 2nd in that class. Yes, it was the Kyler Murray class. No, I'm not sorry. I think they're close as quarterbacks, but I feel like that Drew Lock is in a much better position, and that's something that needs to be considered when we're talking about real MVP chances. You have to have the opportunity to get double-digit wins, make a playoff push, and build up those stats, and have those dominating performances, those 3-4 touchdowns a game. I think this is going to be a lot harder for Daniel Jones to do this year. So if we're doing MVP rankings, Drew Lock is my number 1 anyway. Daniel Jones, I'm not sure if he'd be on my top 5 in terms of like breakout candidates or young quarterbacks competing for their first MVP. Little bit pessimistic maybe, but I don't see the Giants taking big steps this year.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I've kind of talked myself. I definitely should have put Drew Lock at number 2 and put Daniel Jones maybe around the Kyler Murray spot. Yeah.
I'd probably have Kyler over Daniel Jones, to be
4.
honest, on this, because Arizona's looking at
that's what I'm wondering. Yeah. All right, so let's do that. Let's put Daniel Jones back. I'm gonna give him tied at number 3 with Kyler Murray, and put Drew Lock at number 2. And that
just need to talk Josh Allen down to number 2, and we're all in this. We're all agreeing, all on the same page. Great.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Okay.
I don't think that's gonna happen because, look, man, the NFL runs in cycles, and I noticed this stuff being a fantasy football player. And I see a trajectory here where Josh Allen can have that elusive Cam Newton 2015 season. I mean, they picked up Stephon Diggs. I mean, look at what he accomplished last year with John Brown and Cole Beasley as his number 1 and 2 receivers. Those guys were drawing double coverage. And what are you going to do with John Brown double covered and Cole Beasley? These guys are not number 1 wide receiving talent, but now they have that. And no matter which one draws double coverage or any coverage, Stephon Diggs can get open. And let's say they are double teaming Stephon Diggs. That leaves John Brown, who is a burner for you to pass downfield, or Cole Beasley if you need to check down. Whatever. You got Evan Ingram there, who at one point in time was almost, a top 3 tight end in the league in his rookie season. Now he's dealt with injury since then, but the weapons are there. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. I'm looking forward to Josh Allen connecting this year. Not only making plays with his feet like Cam Newton did in 2015, which I see a lot of that coming as well, but I'm looking at him taking that next step to also being not necessarily an elite passer, but a good passer. This kid can throw the ball 80 yards downfield at any given moment, and now he's got a receiving core that could possibly go down and get those passes. And
Bills are a dangerous team. What are you saying?
Was that? The Bills?
I said the Bills are a dangerous team, no doubt.
Yes,
and I agree with most of what you said. And you talked about this like sort of this instinctual thing where it just feels like this is like the season things line up for him to have that kind of season. And I can't help but agree because I know what you mean. It's really tough to describe, but it's there. I know what you mean. And I cannot hate on you for saying that at all. I think the potential is there for the Bills team realistically to be the best team in the AFC this year. A lot of things will have to come together to see that kind of a rise. But a lot of those things have been at least demonstrated to a degree last year already. First of all, top 10 defense we have seen is in place. A defense that can go to and maybe win playoff games. And especially, be consistent over the long run. Much improved offense, a quarterback in his 3rd year, now 4th, that will get better. And on top of that, you brought up Stephon Diggs. You now gave him targets that'll actually, be elite receivers and be able to get double coverages, allowing or opening up those other plays underneath, or those playmaking abilities, like you mentioned, the Cam Newton style plays. for Josh Allen to really show off what he can do. I like the pick. I'd probably go Drew Lock above him because it seems like a more streamlined system, and it's more clear to me how the Denver offense will work and how it will function and why it will do well. But I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna attempt to really talk you down off of Josh Allen and make them switch positions. I might switch positions between them, but there is no big objective reason for why Josh Allen should not be number one on this list. He's in a much better position than Sam Darnold in terms of the situation that he's in. He's a better player than Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. Of course, he had his breakout year for comparing him to that class. And well, Josh Rosen, exactly. So Josh Allen, I think if we're talking about that draft class, definitely best chances. I like where they're going. I have Sean McDermott, I mentioned it last week, as one of my candidates for Coach of the Year. You said you had Josh Allen as one of your top candidates for MVP of the league. None of those claims are outlandish. It seems like it, because when was the last time we talked about the Bills as being not maybe pushing like for a wild card spot if a lot of things go right, but being a top 3 team in the AFC, like making the playoffs and winning a playoff game? We haven't said that in a while, which is why it's kind of hard to grasp that, but I feel like that's the situation we're about to enter, and this will be a good team.
Yes, I agree. And man, it must. I was trying to think back when was the Bills a great team? What, the early 90s?
Yeah, they went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. They were a good team once, but it's been a while.
That was pretty much it. They've been at the bottom of the barrel since.
Ever since, it's tough.
Yeah.
Also, this is sometimes interesting, like a thought experiment. How many Bills quarterbacks pre-Josh Allen can you name? Like from this century? It seems like they're all just vanished from memory. Tyrod Taylor, yeah. I can come up with E.J. Manuel.
Peterman.
Yeah.
Yeah, E.J. Manuel.
A lot of forgettableness. A lot of
all of it is. I mean, give us a few years, we won't remember any of those.
Especially if Josh Allen is the guy.
Exactly, yes.
Josh Allen's still starting there 5 years in the future.
If you go 30 years down the road, you're going to be thinking there was Jim Kelly and then there was Josh Allen.
Oh, okay. So Josh Allen is going to win 4 consecutive AFC Championship games.
Man, I wouldn't hate it if that's the case.
There's a little bit to go. He has the potential. I think he has the potential to be one of the greater quarterbacks in Bills history, for sure. And he's in a good position. There's a good team around him. It's a bit of it's funny, actually, kind of ironic, because you've liked the comparison so much with the Cam Newton comparison. You bring it up every time, and now Cam Newton is going to be playing against him in the same division, and we have the Patriots-Bills rivalry once again. And it's really tough for me to actually pick my favorite between those two right now. I think the Bills are a more complete team, which sounds weird to say.
Yeah.
The Patriots have an advantage in coaching, special teams, definitely special teams, maybe defensively, but they're both going to be great defenses. They have what seem to be similar style quarterbacks, one who we project to still be on the rise, one who we project to have had his best time in the league already. And Josh Allen seems to have a little bit more offensive firepower to work with. So you can't hate anybody for saying that the Bills should still be the favorite to win the division. Not to live up to, but it should be very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing it, because that division feels wide open for the first time, or maybe the second time now. It's starting to get into that situation where it feels wide open for the first time in a long time, like decades, in fact.
Man, it's amazing, though, just thinking about the similarities between those two teams. The obvious difference is the coaching aspect. You got, the proven versus the unproven, basically. But the quarterbacks, so similar. The running back room, so similar between those two teams. I give the advantage on the wide receiver core to Buffalo. But, Cole Beasley could be the next Julian Edelman with the right quarterback, Who knows? But
yeah, maybe not quite that, but he could be okay. He's a number 3.
I don't know, because I don't think anybody was on Julian Edelman at first either until Tom Brady pretty much. I mean, he became the next Wes Welker, you know. But then again, you know,
I think Julian Edelman had a lot of the the kind of the stereotypes against him. He's like a slow white slot receiver coming out of college.
Yeah,
he's not gonna be that good. He dropped the Hall of Fame career in New England and been steadily one of their best players. So that's that.
Oh yeah,
maybe, but I don't think that's a good. I don't think it's a fair comparison. That's a lot for Beasley to live up to, because that's one of the better ones we've seen.
I'll tell you this though, I'll take Stephon Diggs over Mohamed Sanu any day.
Yeah, that I would agree with.
Yeah. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see those two matchups this season.
Should be fun. So for you, the list now, just to summarize it, is looking how?
Of course, I just closed my book up.
Since you've changed a little bit around with Daniel Jones there.
I got Josh Allen number 1, Drew Lock number 2, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give them the tie. Tied at 3 is Kyler Murray and Daniel Jones, because I can't quite push myself to put Kyler Murray over Daniel Jones, because and especially long term here, but for one season. Sam Darnold comes in at number 5, and Baker Mayfield once again did not make the list.
Did not make the list.
Disappointing.
Yeah, I can see how it's disappointing. Okay, let me take a stab at this. So, Josh Allen, Drew Lock are 1 and 2 in any particular order. I'll let the viewer decide whatever is the most inoffensive to them, and that's what I'm going with. It's tough to go beyond that, because those two are very much above the rest, given that they're both in a great situation and are trending upwards and are very talented players. Kyler Murray, in terms of situation that he's in, he definitely has a good shot to do it. Sam Darnold, in terms of the quality caliber player that he is, but the Jets need to work better as a unit, and they need to resolve that drama and get to playing football. I think he should be on the list too. I will bring this up on behalf of our buddy JJ, of course. He wanted me to bring this up, so I'm gonna name Teddy Bridgewater because he wanted me to say it. He thinks that he's actually got a really good shot to go in Carolina. He say Carolina is underrated in general, and he in fact likes the Panthers over the Bucs this year. So if we can get a closing statement from you on Bridgewater.
Now, man, that. Like I made the joke earlier off recording that elusive 7th or 8th year breakout, however long Bridgewater's been in the league here. But I guess it is possible. I just don't see how he does it with the team that he's on, to tell you the truth. I mean, he has an elite receiver in DJ Moore. He has an elite running back in Christian McCaffrey. He has a horrible O-line. If he's gonna do it, it's gonna be up to him, Christian McCaffrey, and DJ Moore. And basically, now I'll just say this: he's gonna have to put the team on his back, because we saw Christian McCaffrey be the best running back in the entire league, and the team was still garbage. So it's definitely gonna be up to him to put the entire team on his back, and he's gonna have to build a rapport with not only DJ Moore, but Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson. And if he can do all that, then I guess anything's possible. I would put him back like number 8 or 9 for me, though.
Yeah. And that with the first-year head coach being down another Hall of Fame linebacker, tough task to put that on Teddy, but we'll see. It is interesting that we're talking about him as a breakout candidate, considering how he's been there so long. But that's sometimes the path that careers can take. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, he was drafted in the same year as people such as Blake Bortles, Johnny Manziel, and Jimmy Garoppolo, who have seemingly lived 1,000 NFL lifetimes at this point. And in some of those cases, 1,000 lifetimes outside of the NFL pretty quickly, in fact, after being drafted that year. It seems so interesting that we're still talking about him like he's the up-and-comer, and he's but it's really the first time that he has a aside of maybe Minnesota, that stable environment to really start in. How stable it will be, we'll have to see. He looked good last year in a running system with a very strong team, being a similar style quarterback to Drew Brees. He filled that spot extremely well. Will that carry over to a very different team in Carolina that is used to very different quarterback play? I have my doubts. I probably won't pick their record over Carolina, but it's a bold prediction. You can certainly stand for that. I probably won't do it. And he's not on my top 5 list for breakouts in terms of like MVP favorite, just because I don't think the team will be that good and it'll be a lot of run game, not a Christian McCaffrey reliance. But it's a name to keep in mind, definitely, that could go on some people's lists. So definitely curious to see. I'll give him a fair shot and see what he can do as a starter and the guy of the team.
It'd be a Cinderella story if that's
the case. It could be. If the Panthers make the playoffs this year, can you imagine? Like, if they somehow in this division win like 8 or 9 games and then maybe make a wild card spot, that would be so mad. Yeah, I can imagine you would be, but that would be very interesting for sure. We'll see.
Yeah,
I doubt it, but hey, it could happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if that's it for today, I think we've covered all our bases today. Let us know who you think are the breakout candidates at quarterback. And, of course, the storyline of the week, Cam Newton with the New England Patriots. What do we think about it? Is it going to work? Is it going to go up in flames? Are the Patriots doomed, or are they back in business contending for deep playoff pushes and Super Bowl appearances? Let us know in the comments of this video. Other than that, I'm assuming we'll be back with other position groups. We're going to be talking about running backs, receivers, breakout candidates. A lot of names to still talk about. It's always one of my favorite things to do every year. And it's going to be fantasy football season sooner rather than later, by the way. So stay tuned for that if you want some of Smokey's expert takes on that topic, because I know as soon as that starts, you are going to be all over that, and I can't wait to get your fantasy takes on that. So it should be a great start. NFL underway. Let us know your opinions on what we've talked about, and we are going to see you in the next one.
Deuces.